Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Jeff, and I've got Chad here and our guest moderator, Tal Thompson. And wow, what a chat! It was just flying by. We were just talking with Tal how it was just like his hands were talking so fast he wasn't sure he was gonna be able to use his mouth anymore and speak because it was just crazy for the last hour. So, what an awesome chat! Great topic talking about the maker movement and education was definitely a hot topic. People were all over it. It was a lot of great resources, ideas, challenges that people were helping each other sort of come up with ideas to overcome and stuff like that. Tal, how are you feeling after this? This was your first mastery chat moderating. Was it your first Twitter chat altogether, or just the
As a moderator? Yeah, absolutely. I've been
first moderating? Man, you did an awesome job, though.
Yeah, congrats, man.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. It was fun. And I tell you what, whenever I talk to the Teach Better team, I always talk about I love nerding out about education with people, and this was my tribe for sure. A bunch of maker maniacs on here, and
heck yeah,
it made me very happy. And it was so cool to see how broad maker really is, and how different definitions came out, and it's powerful. It's got a lot of ways it could be used in all levels of class. I saw kindergarten teachers, I saw a college professor, someone from Taiwan. I mean, everything. It was amazing.
So let's talk about that. So the way people described it, was there any in particular that you can remember that kind of stuck out to you that you were like, oh, I never thought of it that way, or oh, that's really broad way to look at it?
I think that there was a common theme, which is what I really liked, and all of them came back to using it as a tool to solidify collaboration in their classroom, which I thought was powerful. I loved the underlying current that went through the whole process, that content is important, but what we really need kids to develop are these skills that Maker brings out of them. This empathy, look at empathy and designing for others, and this whole concept of building confidence in kids who typically don't have the strength to speak up in a class when it's a typical traditional classroom. So I mean, I think the way that it was really, what I could tell is how far along people were in the maker movement through the way they were talking about it. They were in certain stages of my maker life.
Yeah, sure.
It was really fun to look at.
There was one that Jennifer Manley put out. I think you commented as well. I liked it because she said that, to me, the maker movement is about creating without rules or with a few rules. It's about giving kids a space to build whatever they might imagine, thereby sparking curiosity and creativity. I really enjoyed that. Was I do every now when I think about it, I remember to screen capture some different ones, and that was one that I grabbed early on that I really liked.
That one was powerful to me too, because I just 2 days ago I was talking to a bunch of pre-K teachers, and I talked to them. I said, you guys have what all the other teachers want right now, and those are kids that haven't been stifled the creativity out of them. So embrace this, use maker. And to me, that's really powerful. And to get out of the way, that's hard for teachers. You know, we want to coddle and nurture, but just get out of the way and let them struggle and let them learn from that. And
that's one of the biggest hurdles a lot of the teachers we work with go through as well, is getting themselves out of the way, giving more freedom, and letting their students actually embrace the learning process as opposed to having it dictated to them, right? So a lot of times we feel like the more control we take as a teacher, the more learning that can happen, when it's really the opposite, right? The more power and freedom we give to our students, the more learning they can embark on and actively engage in. And we find time and time again that once teachers start to let loose, right, and not without structure behind it, right, but once teachers start to let loose and give their students more freedom, they very rarely go back, because they realize how much power is in there. So I think that's a common theme between, mastery learning and maker, and the maker movement is just that embodiment of student freedom and their ability and trust in what they can do on their own, right? You just mentioned kindergartners, and they're probably one of the most, I used to always say that kindergartners and elementary students make the best scientists because they're pure of mind. And they ask good questions and they try to seek out answers, right? And those are things that the maker movement, I think, naturally brings out in students. And I think it can also rebirth some of those feelings later on, right? So those questions that you haven't asked since you were a second grader as an 8th grade teenage angst-ridden kid, right? Like now all of a sudden I'm trying to solve how to make this thing fly across the room with cardboard or something like that. Like all of a sudden I'm asking like these really what could seem like elementary questions, but really important ones because they mean that I'm thinking and I'm doing and I'm creating. So I agree with you 100%.
Right, and I think what's fun is in the path of the training that you guys do, and how it kind of is parallel with the maker movement. There's so many. You probably see it in your training when teachers are falling in love with self-paced learning and getting kids. There's a moment in maker and in self-paced where a teacher says, "What am I supposed to be doing right now? I'm not doing anything. Should I be doing something right now?" And I'm like, "Just smile and watch. This is amazing. Just watch this growth happen." And that's what maker does, and that's what definitely self-paced learning does, getting kids to buy in and empower themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
so Tal, there was we talked about the challenges, and a lot of challenges were several people mentioned things along the lines of being comfortable with letting go and relinquishing some of that power and dealing with the sort of controlled chaos. And then our good friend Stella said, one of the biggest challenges is just letting go and taking that plunge.
Right.
So as someone who has done that and has done that a lot, who speaks all across the country with teachers on how to kind of jump and make that move and how to get in there, what are some of the the first steps if I'm just looking to dip my toe in the water? If I'm not ready for that plunge, I'm a little nervous. Maybe my admin's not letting me go. Like, what's the best method for sort of moving that towards the maker movement in my classroom?
I think the biggest, well, there's a lot of different reasons why teachers have that apprehension, but one of them is, that dreaded May, April test they have to take at the end of the year. So if they don't feel confident with how maker works and how it fits their needs, I tell them to start on these little Friday challenges, and maker can happen in 10, 15 minutes. And I know every minute counts, but when I first started 2 or 3 years ago, I started throwing these little maker challenges on Friday, and it could be as simple as, take duct tape, index cards, and straws, and you have to design a structure that will support the biggest piece of fruit I want to put on it. And just watching the kids well, this is crazy. And then they're looking at me like I'm nuts right off the bat. But then, you do that 3 or 4 weeks in a row, you just take up 10, 15 minutes. Then as a teacher, if you get out of the way, of course, and they'll say, "Hey, try to bend the straw this way. You need an angle here." If you stay out of the way, but you're watching it and saying, "Wow, these are all the things I've been complaining about in the teacher lounge where my kids won't think. They won't do anything on their own. Wow, it's happening right in front of me." And then you start sprinkling it into some of the, the easier places. Science is easier. If you teach forces in motion, if you have anything like anything that STEM has already shown a way, you can start taking STEM projects and then eliminating the steps. Eliminate the steps and say, all right, you're going to do this on your own. So I think starting with science and then starting real small is the key.
I like that example you give. There's another one. Nicole Blanchard put out that one of her favorite projects is the newspaper chair challenge. I don't know if you saw that one.
No, I didn't.
Unlimited newspaper, one roll of tape. Then they test to see if the chair can hold the weight of an adult.
Ooh, so my kids would be very angry.
It's a picture it's all rolled. What's that? What was
that? 6'8". My kids are going to be very angry if they have to support my weight. That's a lot of newspaper.
Well, maybe find a different adult.
There's other teachers in the building that would work better.
They'd have to make the back much longer and stuff too.
Exactly.
But it was a similar thing. I thought it was a cool challenge there. One that Greg Moffitt put out. He said one of the biggest challenges he sees in any movement, not just maker movement, is giving teachers the time to experiment and learn about it. He said I can find money for materials and supplies. I can make space, but teachers deserve the chance to explore and be makers too, and be compensated for it. So, do you have any? And I don't know, do you have any resources online that are ways for teachers to do that, or how would I, if I'm a teacher and I'm not getting that freedom or that what's the word I'm looking for? If I'm not being given that chance,
right?
What can I do? What should I do? I mean, obviously there's a mind change. Self-advocate. How to, what are ways maybe that I can try to bring it at a different angle to my admin? Like what can I do in that situation? Because, there's a lot of teachers that unfortunately find themselves there where they're not given the time to go after. They're not necessarily given that chance, that opportunity, compared to some people who are fortunate enough to have just a little bit more open-minded or free-spirited admins who are willing to let them try and fail and stuff. What are your recommendations or your advice to someone in that situation?
Well, they just come to my school district. I think that's the answer. That's why I moved here. I mean, we got room. We got a couple jobs open. No, I think I think start off like the biggest collection of resources for the maker movement. There's 2 places. It's Edutopia has a ton of maker. There's resources, there's projects, there's ways to get started, and Maker Ed, of course. MakerEd.org does phenomenal work. I think you kind of talked about it, and he mentioned it on in his tweet. I remember seeing that tweet that they have to become makers themselves in order for it to work in the classroom. So like that's, you know, the best maker workshops I've been to and the ones that I run, like we are making the entire time, because I want to see them like, wow, like the reflection that comes back from them saying, wow, this is really cool how we did this or we did that. And that's what I want my kids and my kids. So you're buying in, you have to buy in yourself. So I think the approach would be, you know, if I'm very fortunate to have an amazing principal, but I think I would try to get my admin or someone in the district that's an advocate for curriculum instruction and get them on board with, maybe they just come and spend an hour with me and we do some maker tasks and just play together. And like, I think if you got the right delivery, and so you did like a maker task that was just a challenge, and say, let me show you another way that's content related. Of course, every admin wants to know how this is going to impact their bottom line.
Sure.
How do I do a maker task that watch how kids can get engaged with this? If I can get a couple 40-year-old people together and get engaged in it, they'll know the kids will do it. So, and I think those two resources online, and then also just, you got to start building your tribe. Like any place where it's not as open to change, you got to build a tribe of people around you that are in and start proving your theory right.
So I want to touch. Go ahead, Chad. You want to add something?
Well, I was just going to jump in. I think there's like another problem that exists on the flip side of that, right? So I've also been in other districts where I'm doing a training and I'm walking past like these amazing resources, right? So like the resources are there, the admin's on board with the use of the makerspace, but it's just like sitting dormant for like months and weeks on end, and the teachers make keychains every once in a while. You know what I mean? Like, because there's a 3D printer in the corner, and I always make this joke that these cool things that exist in the school never actually get used for the reason that they exist, which is for creative purposes for students to explore and use. So I think the other side of it is, once the resources are there, is giving teachers the leeway and the freedom and the time to play with those things. Right. So that, like you just said, like let's take a day or a PD day and let our teachers like play with all these things, but then also giving them ways to implement it and manage it for 20 kids. Because I think a lot of times, and that's where we work with teachers a lot on the self-paced stuff, right? So like a lot of times teachers will go, well, we can't use the 3D printer. It takes like 2 hours to print something, and I have 20 kids. So how do I manage this? Well, if you put that in a self-paced setting, only 1 or 2 kids is getting to that part, you know, or that experience at a time. So it completely changes the equation. Or more importantly, kind of what you were saying earlier, if you open up that conversation for your students and go, I'm not going to tell you how you have to build this. You could 3D print something, but you don't have to. You could build it out of this, but you don't have to. Now, maybe 2 or 3 kids want to 3D print a component of their design, but the other, 14 kids don't need to. So, so I think there's a lot of pieces there where it's about opening up to the possibilities and being more flexible as a teacher to allow the use and the proper use of these things for students. Right,
voice and choice, right? Like you have a voice to come up with what you want your project, how you want your project to go, and then the choice of the materials. So you're right. Like I have never, I shouldn't say I never, I had my same mistake that you just mentioned. I decided to do a project with a 3D printer and had them all come in there and like, wow, this is going to be the worst week of my life. But because I was going to be staying after school waiting for these ridiculous things to print. But then when you give them choice, some of them are like, yeah, that's cool. I saw someone do that, but that's not for me. Other kids are enthralled by it. Other kids want to say, all right, you use a 3D printer. I'm going to make mine on Minecraft. I'm going to use mine on cardboard. I want to use the fabricating tools. I want to code this. And so, then it just becomes, you're facilitating a room of, it's like a think tank when you get really good at it. It's like this, just look around at all this amazing different choice that's happening.
Right. Yeah.
Tal, I want to touch on one that you actually commented, said this might be my favorite tweet so far. So Mary Rose Joseph answered to question 3. She said the willingness to try something before students and teachers, she said the willingness to try something before students and teachers were reluctant to try something for fear of the outcome. The maker movement allows for iterations, trial and error. That's where true learning occurs, which I love that as well. But I just wanted to sort of have you elaborate on that, because you said, hey, this might be one of my favorite tweets so far. It's about teachers and students taking risks, practicing risk taking leads to embrace and struggle, which leads to a citizen filled with grit and ambition, which is just an awesome reply on your part as well. So can you elaborate on that? I just want to touch on that. That was a common theme, I think, amongst others, but like
I think it just connected with me. The you guys know as you train people, the amount of times, especially if it's not someone who, like, everyone in the room was, I don't do workshops where everyone in the room pays to see my workshops. A lot of them they're there because their administrator said, hey, this guy's coming, you're going to watch what he has to do. And so the look that you see sometimes when you walk in on a Friday afternoon training for the that ever get hired for that. But it's just that
Chad knows it all too well.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, this is going to go well. But the look you get as you walk in, to me, it, like right off the bat, I'm like, gosh, I see this all. I'm that guy too. I'm sitting in when other people are coming to our training sessions, but most of it has nothing to do with anything towards me or my content. It's just that apprehension to change. And so the maker's a big leap. And you guys know, like, talking to a teacher to give up control at the middle school level and say, we're going to let your 20 kids go self-paced. They're like, whoa, pump the brakes. That's horrifying.
Yeah.
No joke. No joke.
But when you can get those teachers to buy in, and as it's happening to a workshop or even in your own school, it's just powerful. So when she said, letting the teachers take the leap, or they decide to take a chance, that is what Maker is. It's that for teachers. If we want to see it happen in schools, teachers have to take the leap. But more importantly, if we want to see that change in our classrooms, we got to allow our kids to take that leap by giving them this opportunity. Even if it's not in our comfort zone, if you read through that whole tweet thing, what you're going to read is, wow, this is a powerful tool. Maybe I got to get out of the way and let this happen and just see what happens. Let my kids experience this. And that's with a lot of different things in education. It's because we go through so many different ideas and options that come our way as educators. Sometimes it's just, as soon as someone walks in the door, we're like, oh no, I don't want to do it. But being open-minded is huge.
I like that you mentioned the apprehension at first, and you hit the nail on the head when, like, we basically deal with the exact same thing with a lot of teachers. And but I also see a common fear that teachers have of, oh no, I can't let my kids do whatever they want because my classroom's going to be insane. And I don't think that has to be the case, right? Like, there's something called, like, productive struggle, productive chaos, productive and then there is chaos, right? If you have a mismanaged classroom, or you don't have expectations for your students, or you don't set systems and routines up for how they get supplies, how they use, like what classroom management 101, right? So but just because you're giving your students freedom, and I always preach this all the time, is like, that only occurs effectively when you have the structure and the routines and the expectations on the back end, so that the freedom can exist on the front end. So even though the classroom may be loud, it's engaged. Even though the kids might be up and moving, they're moving and getting materials and doing things with purpose because they're focused and embedded in the process of making or learning or whatever your goal is. So I think that's a huge fear teachers have. It's like, oh no, I'm going to have bad management if I let my students have more freedom, when actually, when done properly, you actually can have much better management through engagement, through student through student interest and passion. So, like, those are your first three ways to manage students in the first place, right? Because engaged students aren't worried about messing up your lesson, right? Like,
exactly.
That's not going to happen. And then the second part of it is, like, if you're a teacher worth your salt, you're going to have systems, expectations, and routines. Like, those things don't necessarily have to go away. And a lot of teachers think that it does. And I think that's a huge misconception about self-paced, makers, PBL, anything kind of in that realm, where teachers have to let go of some control. But I love when I see teachers doing it properly, and it's like, no, look, this is productive, but it's a little louder than you're used to. Kids are moving around more than you're used to seeing, but that's great, because look, I have 99 to 100% engagement almost my entire class, right? Versus, 50 to 60% engagement in more traditional classrooms. So I'll take that any day, even if it's a little louder.
Right. A chaos classroom versus a compliant classroom. I'll take chaos all day. And you sprinkle in
chaos.
Yeah, exactly. Chaos. You sprinkle in with everything you just said, you sprinkle in one of your mini lessons on every day is connecting with kids and inspiring kids. That's how you get engaged learners. You put every kid wants control. I mean, I'm a parent, trust me, they want control. They don't want us dictating their lives. And so if we can put something in place where they can be empowered to run their process, and then we're the nudgers and the safety net every once in a while, but also continuously inspire them. That is what engagement is to me. It's not walking in a room and looking at 24 kids with drool running off the corner of their mouth staring at them. That's not engaged. That's a kid who's going to be a behavior problem later.
Right.
So, or
that's not learning today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a compliant non-learner.
Right. That I do not want any compliant is not our goal. I'm hoping.
No.
Right.
So, all right. So an awesome chat. So I want to touch just on one thing is that we will not be having Mastery Chat next Thursday because we're all going to be eating turkey. So take the night off and spend time with your family. Our next chat is on, and that's weird for us. We haven't had a Thursday off in a long time. I know,
man.
I'm going to get on Twitter at like 7:30 next week and not remember. But the next chat will be Thursday the 29th, and our own Tiffany Ott is going to be leading that one.
Finally,
so
that'll be. She's a
I know. She's just like just nothing. It's hard to get her going sometimes. Yeah, hopefully she's still watching, and will yell at us later. But Tal, it was really awesome having you on, man.
It really was. I'm glad we got to connect finally.
Yeah, it's really cool. It was a really cool topic. Really engaged group. People were really excited for it. So. Super happy with it. I'm sure you've got a million comments and messages to go back to on Twitter tonight.
I'm going to nerd out. You know me.
Hopefully you're nerding out and got the fingers stretched out, ready to go.
Ready to rock.
And so hopefully we'll connect with you, have you on to moderate another one in the future, and
I would love
that. From there. So hopefully you have a amazing Thanksgiving with your family. And everyone who's watching, have a great Thanksgiving. We will see you on the 29th. Obviously, just keep hitting us up on Twitter and everything else, and we can keep chatting some maker movement with Tal. So follow him on Twitter and let's keep the conversation going, guys. We will see you on the 29th.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.
Have a good night.